Evening everyone, welcome back to the channel. How are you doing? Wednesday night, and I'm going to be having a look at this little documentary that popped up, 19 minutes long. Why are people obsessed with Tool? Crack into it. Okay, here we go. Well, I'm a massive fan of Tool, but I wouldn't say I was obsessed. Maybe you would consider yourself obsessed.
Tool is considered to be the highest caliber of musicianship by the most prestigious sound engineers and scholars in the world.
What's up, everybody? I'm Finn McKenty. This is the Punk Rock MBA, and today we are here to talk about Tool. And if you've watched my other videos, you know that I have made a few jokes about Tool fans, like the whole diaper thing, which I still don't get, and to be honest, I don't want to get it. But in all seriousness, the band really fascinates me because I can't think of a single other band in the entire world of rock and metal that has done what Tool has done. They have 4 platinum albums, they have several Grammys, they even beat Taylor Swift for the #1 spot on Billboard in 2019, and they achieved all of that despite following absolutely none of the rules about what is supposed to make a band successful. For one, they have a very sparse discography with only 5 albums in 30 years, and material that's almost deliberately difficult to get into with all these elaborate progressive songs that are sometimes 7 or 8 minutes long with tons of complex time signatures and kind of vague lyrics, as well as a frontman who seems to kind of hate their fans, for example, literally calling them insufferable.
First things first, calm the fuck down, or you're gonna pull a hammy. 2, I'm not the lead singer, I'm the only singer. We're not the fucking Supremes, and I'm not Diana Ross. 3rd, I'm not of or from Tool, I'm in Tool, and Pussifer, and Perfect Circle, and your mom.
And so the question that I have is relatively simple but hard to answer, which is...
I wasn't expecting that bit at the end there. The rest was all very good, spot on, but I wasn't expecting that at the end.
What is their secret? Why is Tool literally like 100 times more popular than any other prog band? How did they outsell Taylor Swift without following any of the rules? And of course, the question that we are all asking, are their fans really that bad? Those are the questions that I will try to answer in this video. But first, if you haven't, please check me out on Twitch. I'm streaming twice a week from 4 to 7 p.m. Pacific on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and there's a link to that in the description of this video. When it comes to Tool and their sort of complex relationship with their fans, I think this quote from a diehard fan sums it up nicely and kind of hits on a lot of things that I'm going to talk about later. At 15, 16, 17, and my early 20s, I was searching for something and I thought they had the answers. It was a mysterious band talking about some profound shit. Getting older, I realized I'm not going to get some enlightenment and not find all the answers to problems at a Tool show. But in order to really unpack that and what it means, we have to start way back at the very beginning. Tool started out back in 1991 when they met after the members of the band had moved to LA from various parts of the country. Maynard had gotten out of the army and was playing with Danny Carey in the band Green Jello. The guitarist Adam Jones was working as a special effects artist in Hollywood on some really high-profile movies, for example, Predator 2 and Nightmare on Elm Street. And in 1992, they released their debut EP called Opiate.
Even if I'm not serious.
And on the back of that EP, they quickly hit the road, touring with bands like White Zombie, Corrosion of Conformity, and Rage Against the Machine. I saw them a couple times back then. The one that really sticks out to me was in 92 or 93 with Rollins' band. I didn't really know who they were, but I was totally blown away. Maynard just seemed like he was possessed on stage, kind of like the evil goblin version of Henry Rollins.
I think the people that absolutely love them are blown away by them the first time they see them. I think that's the connection that they have. And that could be any one of their songs that just comes on the radio or they hear or somebody plays for them. I know they don't get a lot of stuff on the radio, but it is that first instant reaction. You either love them or you just go, yeah, okay. But if you do, then you do.
I remember him going on this kind of weird rant about how he was just an object, the same as the jug of water that he was holding in his hand. Anyhow, Opiate was not exactly a huge commercial success by any means, but it did get good reviews. The people who did buy it liked it, and from putting in the work every night on the road, they slowly but surely built up an organic fan base that was primed for the release of their second album, Undertow, in 1993. Which amazingly debuted at number 2 on Billboard and pushed them to the very front of the pack of newer metal bands. And I think that there were a few factors for their success. One of them was just good timing. This was at the height of grunge's popularity when bands like Alice in Chains and Soundgarden were showing the world that you could be heavy and, for lack of a better word, also be intelligent, sophisticated, and actually have something to say. This was also when mainstream audiences were more receptive than ever to music that was honestly just kind of weird. For example, bands like Primus were going platinum. The 90s were a wild time. The second factor, I think, was Beavis and Butthead, which was MTV's most popular show at the time, with the power to basically make or break bands. For example, they're responsible for White Zombie blowing up, and Beavis and Butthead gave a lot of love to the video for Sober.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. If I could move my arm that fast, I'd never leave the house.
And speaking of which, another factor was their videos, which were very cool and innovative and honestly stand up today. Nobody else was doing that kind of stop motion animation at the time, all of which was led by their guitarist Adam Jones, who, like I mentioned earlier, had all that experience working on like legit Hollywood special effects projects. So he was able to bring that to the band, and it was actually so good that they won a Billboard Award for Best Video by a New Artist. And the fact that the band wasn't actually in their videos, I think kind of contributed to this idea of Tool being this kind of mysterious, brooding band with kind of a hidden, deeper message. As Maynard said, I don't want people to latch on to my movements or the way I sound or the way Danny hits his drums. That's a distraction from the piece at hand. When you
I'll need to watch that. I didn't know there was a video. I think I might have seen something like that, but because I didn't see them in the video, I thought, well, I'll just listen to the song, but I'll maybe come back and react to the video as well. That's a nice treat to listen to Sober again, listening to the video and watching the video.
You look at the Mona Lisa, I don't have any idea what the artist looks like or what he's about. And all of this was very deliberate on their part. They had the ability to take these kind of wild creative chances because they chose to sign with a new, smaller label called Zoo Entertainment that offered them less money than some of the other labels looking at Tool, but in exchange for that gave them complete creative control. And from the very beginning, they created all these layers of meaning and mythos around their music. For example, in early interviews, they claimed that they were influenced by this philosophy called Lacrimology, which was based on this obscure book from the 1940s. The only problem is, that was all bullshit. The book never even existed, and this was one of the earliest examples of Tool trolling the media and their own fans. Something that I think is a really underappreciated part of what Tool is. They're like kind of simultaneously profound and deep, and yet also totally juvenile and stupid.
Hi, I'm Britney Spears.
I'm Whitney Houston.
Like how the cover of Tool is this really striking, visually polished, sophisticated image of this kind of demonic rib cage or something. You don't really know exactly what it's about, but you feel like it has some kind of deep meaning. And then on the bottom of the CD tray, well, there's a picture of a cow licking its own asshole. As another example of that, take the name of their second album. One way you could say it is Anima, meaning soul or life force, something that Carl Jung talked about a lot. Or you could say it as Enema, meaning one of those things that you use to squirt water up your ass. And you'll notice that butt stuff is kind of a recurring theme with Tool. And which one is the quote-unquote real meaning of the album's name? I guess only the guys in the band really know, but I would guess that probably both of those things are valid interpretations. Although interestingly, it seems like a lot of Tool fans seem to ignore the humorous and silly parts of their message and kind of only focus on the parts that seem like darker and deeper and more profound. And so in a lot of ways, I feel like Tool is kind of constantly fucking with their fans, creating this kind of imagery that at first glance is really dark and edgy, but in reality is just a dumb joke.
The problem was that the music that we were listening to didn't quite have the climax right where we wanted the climax for our own personal masturbation. So what we decided to do is write songs that had the climaxes in the right positions for us depending on what day we were jerking off.
The other thing we have to talk about as one of the factors in their early success is that these guys were clearly some of the absolute best musicians in the scene, especially Danny Carey's drumming. But what I find especially interesting is that although their songs obviously can be kind of long and meandering at times, they really aren't as self-indulgent as a lot of other progressive bands are. And so if you were just sort of the casual metal fan that heard them on Beavis and Butthead or whatever, you could just kind of get into their groovy riffs, which were not so different from other bands of the era like Helmet or White Zombie or Rollins Band. But if you're a musician or more of a hardcore fan, there's like almost an endless amount of all these little technical details to their music that you can geek out on. And so on the back of all of that, Undertow went gold in just a few months, and it was clear that the band had broken through to a whole new level of stardom. All of which led up to the release of their second album, Anima, in 1996, which many people consider to be their defining album. And it debuted at #1 on Billboard, led by the first single, Stinkfist.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
And this song in particular, I think, is a really great example of what makes Tool, Tool. On the one hand, the song seems to be about how a lot of people in modern society become kind of like pleasure junkies, going to further and further extremes to feel aroused and alive, because they get so desensitized by everything in modern life. Which, in my opinion, is a pretty genuinely deep, insightful idea. But then, on the other hand, the song might just be about fisting. Or maybe it's about both of those things. Who knows? With Tool, you really just never know. The artwork is also very dark and cryptic, with a long essay about ketamine, and Timothy Leary, the famous hippie LSD advocate, all of which sort of seems to build around the idea that this album is talking about evolution and how mankind as a species can continue to evolve and be better.
It's just a process of becoming a conscious being. If you explore all the stuff that you right away kind of avoid, somebody says, well, I don't like to think about that kind of stuff. Well, that's probably where you should concentrate.
And the music reflects that as well, with this album being a very clear evolution from their earlier material. Songs like Eulogy in particular have those trademark Tool arrangements full of all these intricate details and unusual time signatures, and that sort of like brooding ambience. But then at the same time, they've balanced that out with songs that have titles like Hooker with a Penis and Die Eier von Satan, which sounds like this really menacing, scary, like Marilyn Manson kind of thing. But actually, the lyrics are just a recipe for cookies in German.
Eine halbe Tasse Staubzucker. Eine Viertel Salz.
And to me, this is the actual genius of Tool that I think a lot of people may not be aware of. There's a perception that Tool fans are kind of these hopeless nerds that think the band is much deeper than they really are. But I actually think it's the opposite of that. I think the band is actually far deeper than people give them credit for, in that they really do have true depth to their work. That they're simultaneously these incredible musicians writing these epic prog songs that they do take very seriously, packaged in incredible artwork with a lot of genuinely thought-provoking lyrics and ideas. But at the same time, the band's logo is literally a metal dick, and they have many songs about butt stuff. And some people might think that that silliness undermines the more substantial part of the message, but I don't agree with that. I think that kind of duality and balancing those two elements is far more interesting than a band that just takes themselves super seriously all the time. To me, the best art can make you think and laugh and cry, sometimes all at the same time. And to me, that is what Tool is trying to do. Although I do get the sense that those lighthearted aspects of Tool can be, let's just say, kind of lost on their most devoted fans. As Maynard himself said about the band's use of humor, and whether their fans picked up on that, it's lost. Insufferable people. It's just ridiculous, retards. I'm sorry, can't help them. Way too serious, too much. Lighten up. Which brings us to the most well-known, or maybe I should say infamous, example of Tool lore, their 2001 album, Lateralis, which, as everybody knows at this point, is full of examples of the Fibonacci sequence. Also known as the Golden Spiral, the Fibonacci sequence is a series of numbers that starts at 1, and the next number in the sequence comes from adding the previous two. For example, 1 plus 1 equals 2, 1 plus 2 equals 3, 3 plus 2 equals 5, 5 plus 3 equals 8, and so forth. And if you go through the album, you'll find a lot of references to that. For example, the lyrics to the title track have 1, 3, 5, then 8 syllables in each of the lines, and then it goes backwards and like unwinds that. And the song alternates between the time signatures of 98, 88, and 78, and 987 is the 16th number in the Fibonacci sequence. You get the idea.
Simple logarithmic spiral integer approximation theory.
Now, of course, only the most like hardcore devoted fans would ever even think of that or dig deep enough to find out all of that. But again, I think that is exactly what makes Tool who they are. The layers.
Did you say, hey, it would be a nifty idea to do something to a mathematical sequence?
Nope. No, that was a complete accident.
And for those who do want to really go in there and peel back all the layers of the onion, that builds an incredibly deep connection for them with the music. But unlike a lot of other progressive music, like say King Crimson or Cynic, where you honestly have to be kind of a nerd to even listen to those bands at all, and I say that as someone who absolutely loves Cynic, Tool is accessible enough to where they can be appreciated by just like your average Breaking Benjamin fan, not just the nerds. And personally, even though I am not necessarily the biggest fan of Tool's music, I have an incredible amount of respect for any kind of art that can do both of those things, that can appeal to that like broad mass mainstream audience and also at the same time appeal to those really hardcore nerds, simply because it's just so difficult to do both of those things at once. For example,
Jones
like
TV,
Lord of the Rings, Fallout, Star Wars. I mean, these are some of the greatest pieces of IP of all time. And that is the reason why they are able to do both. That is the reason why they're able to move millions and millions of albums and sell out arenas, and yet still have the same kind of insanely dedicated fans that you usually only see with these relatively small, obscure bands that maybe draw 200 people a night. And as an example of that, look at how their fans think about merch. This is not just like, oh, go to the show and buy a t-shirt to remember that you went. It's like a religion to them. On many of the tours, the band has artists create these limited edition prints and t-shirts that are only available at one specific show. And any of those limited edition items immediately become highly coveted, sought after collector pieces, despite the fact that, to put it bluntly, well, it is really fucking expensive. Like one of the most coveted pieces of Tool merch is the custom painted drum heads that they'll put out that sell for as much as $1,500 at the show and are instantly worth many times
something's worth what people are willing to pay for it. They come with a high price tag. Anything connected to them is going to be because of all the things he said as he's gone through this video.
That on the resale market. Like, look at this one on eBay going for almost $10,000. Like, their fans are thrilled to pay $500 for a VIP ticket that gets first access to that limited merch. And think about that. They're paying the band for the right to pay the band more money. That's some serious devotion. As one fan put it, if you have VIP, you are going to get something. If you're general admission, it's a whole other level of planning and strategy. It's a game, and I want to win that game. And to me, the ultimate proof of all of this is their most recent album from 2019. And for context, the band had gone 13 years between albums for various reasons. One of which was a lawsuit with the artist who drew a version of their logo and had a dispute with the band, and that lawsuit turned into a lawsuit with their insurance company, which dragged out for over 7 years, cost the band millions of dollars, and just sort of like sucked out all their creative energy. Another factor is Maynard being busy, making another album with his side project, A Perfect Circle, and also working on his wine company, and the fact that the band just takes a very, very long time to write their material because that's just how seriously they take it.
A lot of work's being done, a lot of work's been done. I'll go on record now as saying you're going to see some new music next year.
And that delay alone between albums was enough to make a lot of people wonder if the band had lost relevance. And to make matters worse, their music was very famously not available on streaming platforms that whole time. And so a lot of people wondered if Tool still had it.
So why have you guys not had anything on streaming up until this moment?
I can't. I love my brothers. I'm just going to take the fifth on that one.
Okay, so there was some sort of internal discussion.
Or no discussion.
Or no discussion.
Yeah, just the typical Tool time of like, what? There was a meeting?
And yet, despite all of that, when they came back with Fear Inoculum in 2019, it debuted at #1 on Billboard, beating out Taylor Swift's Lover. And so to me, that is really the ultimate validation of everything that they have done. A 30-year-old progressive metal band beating out literally the biggest pop star on the planet in her prime.
That works.
And so that brings us to the last question. Are Tool fans, well, kind of tools at times? To be honest, they are. And I think the fans themselves even realize that, especially when they do literally insane things like send the band death threats for not making a new album fast enough. And as much as I may have made fun of Tool fans over the years, and I probably will continue to do so, I actually do get it. The band are incredible musicians, and there really is a lot of substance behind their music, including a lot of genuinely insightful ideas and humor that unfortunately it seems like a lot of the fans maybe don't necessarily appreciate. And so what is the honest truth about Tool? Well, the truth is that there is only one Tool. And honestly, there will probably never again be another band like them. All right, my friends, that does it for this video. As always, let me know what you think.
Well, everyone, what did you think about that? Put it in the comments for me. What did you reckon? I think he makes some good points. I think the Tool army are very serious, but I don't think all of them are. I think a lot of them are also very aware of the humour within the band. And you've all pointed that out to me in the videos that I've watched. I'm not surprised at merch and things like that going for really high prices. Why wouldn't it? It's collectible, it'll be worth something over the years because of the way Tool are, because they've not recorded many albums, and because they are a bit of an enigma. All the Tool army that I've interacted with via the comments, I can't say that any of you are that serious that you're sending Maynard death threats because they're taking too long to make an album. But there will be people like that, of course there will be. Anyway, I'll probably go back and have a look at some of the videos they made because I didn't really pay much attention to them at all when I was going through the back catalogue. So look out for that. Make sure you hit the subscribe, make sure you hit the like, and I'll see you back for some more videos.